Hey everybody, Steve Prasbrowski here. Welcome to Tip 95 in the series 101 Tips to Ace Your Promotional Exam. As a reminder, my website listed there has lots of great free info on it. Check it out if you haven't done so already. Also, the series is based on my book from Fire Engineering Books and Videos of the same name, available off their website as well as mine below. So, tip 95. Don't wait too long to start preparing for your next promotional exam. And before you're saying, next promotional exam, hear me out. Think about this. None of us ever want to take, I don't want to be negative, but none of us never, let me start from scratch. None of us, I think, want to take more than one promotional exam. We all want to be able to get promoted off the first try, but it doesn't always work that way. And back to the tip of, simply put, don't wait too long to start preparing for your next promotional exam. I remember one of our firefighters years ago, he reached out to me. It was probably 3 weeks before the test, 3 weeks, maybe, give or take. I remember he's like, hey, Chief, can I set up an appointment now? Remember, 3 weeks to the test. And he's like, can I set up an appointment the next couple of weeks before the test so I can pick your brain about the promotional process and how to best prepare? And I caught me off guard. And I remember looking at him going, you mean for the next test, right? And he's looking at me, he goes, no, for the one in like 3 weeks. I go, no. I go, you mean the one for 18 months from now? Because we test every 18 months typically. He ain't getting it. I'm like, dude, have you started preparing? Well, not really. It's 3 weeks from the test. If you haven't started preparing, shit, what better time to start preparing than for the next one? Well, guess what? He didn't pass. He failed miserably. And I guess he's probably kicked himself going, man, I wish I would have studied. No shit. Hey, obviously, when that promotional process is coming up, the good candidates that usually do well and that are prepared are not waiting for the announcement to come out. Because trust me, when the announcement comes out, usually the announcement says, hey, you got 2 or 3 weeks to file your application. Then another 2 weeks after that will be the written test. Then maybe a month after that will be the assessment center. When that announcement comes out, the process is probably going to be within a month or two. 1 month, not to mention 2 or 3 months, is not enough time to prepare properly, adequately for any position. The good candidates have been preparing their whole life, their whole career, and for at least a year or two. But the point on this one here is I'm not trying to be negative. I'm trying to have you be forward-facing, focused on the future. Even if you come out number one, here's something else. You still may not get promoted. You mean, what do you mean? Hey, when I got hired on the job, we used to have only 1 battalion. There used to be 3 battalion chiefs. And then there was 6 battalion chiefs. Actually, sorry. When I got hired on the job, there was 6 battalion chiefs because we had 2 battalions, battalion 2, battalion 3. So 2 battalion chiefs, A shift today, 2 on B shift tomorrow, 2 on C shift the next day. Well, you got 10 captains taking the BC's test, give or take, 18-month promotional process list. There was someone, just because you're number one doesn't mean you're going to get a badge, meaning there might not be any retirements. If there's no retirements, there's no promotions. We had one of our retired battalion chiefs. He just had such bad luck. He was a great guy. When he finally got promoted to chief officer, it took him forever because sometimes he'd be number one on the list, but there'd be no promotions, an 18-month list, no promotions because there was no retirements. And then sometimes he'd come out number 2, but then there'd be 1 promotion. So the number 1 candidate got it. This dude just didn't have luck. He finally did get it because he was persistent, tenacious, stuck with it. But anyway, you may find yourself number 1 and there's no promotions. So guess what? There has to be that breakover period where at some time you realize, oh shit, this list is going to die in a year or 6 months or 9 months or whatever. There's no anticipated retirements or vacancies. I better start preparing for the next one. That was me. My first battalion chief's test, I came out number 3, missed number 2 by like 0.05%. It was like that close, but it didn't matter. I didn't get promoted, but number 1 and 2 got promoted. And I was number 3, but now number 1 on the list. there got to be that point where there was like about 8 months left on that promotional list where I go, you know what? I'm probably going to die number one on this BC list. I better start preparing for the next process, which will happen in probably 8-9 months, which it did happen. And not just, oh, I'm number one on the list now, I'll just ride my time out like some people do. Yeah, good luck on that one. So I told myself that, you know what? I missed number two by like that close. I missed that number two, missed getting one of the badges that close. So you know what? I got the next test here within a year. I better start preparing it. And you know what I did? And I prepared so well that I became number one, or turned out number one on the next list with a lot better score than I did the first time. I mean, I had a lot more acting battalion chief time. I had a lot more experience. Hey, I was more mature, but that's one of those things that there's no guarantee you're going to get promoted. So obviously it's nice to think, hey, I'm number one, I'm on the list. You may or may not get promoted. So don't be the one though that dies number one on the list, because to me, there's nothing worse that you die number one on the list. And then the next test, because you got to take the next test if you want to get promoted, you don't come out number one, or even worse, you don't pass. I've seen that happen in many departments where someone maybe is, all right, I'm number one on the list. They don't get promoted. And then they strutting into the next test thinking that I got this cat in the bag here and everything else. And then they don't pass the next test. That's talk about a weird feeling where you're number one on one list. You don't get promoted. Then you take the next test, you fail it. Somebody else gets promoted. And then another year and a half later, or whatever the next testing cycle is, you take the test again, tail between your legs. Yeah. So don't get cocky. Don't get arrogant. Because think about it. When you don't pass or do as good as you want, you can't wait for the list to die to start preparing for the next one. Because guess what? There's peers of yours that are your competition. They're already preparing. They've been probably preparing longer than you have. So don't think you're the golden child. You know, those that are always preparing for the position should always be ready for the position, ready for the testing process. So that, I think, defines success. Hey, nobody wants to take more than one promotional exam. I get it. However, it happens to all of us if we don't give up. Well, yeah, we can give up and then we'll never get promoted. Hey, I mentioned it happened to me. You know, it's so true. But you know what? The key for me was, you know what? Yeah, I'm number 3, the 1st Battalion Chiefs list. I better up my game. And I upped my game so well that I scored 10 percentage points better. On the next testing process, I was a clear number one by about 10 percentage points. I mean, that's how it was. I didn't have any close people on the list because I made sure I had my shit together and just up my game. Say, hey, the best time to start preparing for the next one is when the current one finishes, or before. Don't wait. My point here is don't wait for the announcement to come out, because once that announcement hits the station, the emails, it's too late, because those good candidates that you're already working with, you know them, they're already preparing. So you're your own worst enemy, but you can also be your number one best champion. Think about that. You got to take the test. Don't worry about your competitors, worry about yourself. So as always, thank you very much for the gift of your time. Until the next episode, be safe, take care, and we'll see you soon. Have a great day, everybody.